The wedding ceremony stopped before the vows. The officiant said, "There's something the groom needs to confess first." I was standing at the altar in my white dress watching my fiancé Blake shift nervously from foot to foot. We'd been together for 4 years, and I thought I knew everything about him. The church was packed with 200 guests, my family in the front row beaming, his parents looking oddly tense. Reverend Collins had just asked if anyone objected to the marriage when he paused and looked directly at Blake. "Before we proceed with the vows, there's a matter that must be addressed." Blake's face went completely white. I looked at him confused, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. Reverend Collins pulled an envelope from inside his robe. "2 days ago, I received information that cannot be ignored. Blake, you need to tell your bride the truth right now, or I will." The church went silent. My mother stood up. "What is going on?" Blake started shaking his head. "Please don't do this. Not here. Not now." The Reverend's voice was firm. "You had 4 years to tell her. You chose not to. She deserves to know before she legally binds herself to you." My hands started trembling, and I could feel 200 pairs of eyes on us. "Blake, what is he talking about?" Blake looked at the floor. "I can explain everything later. Can we just finish the ceremony?" Reverend Collins stepped between us. "No, we cannot." He opened the envelope and pulled out documents. "Blake Michael Warren, you are currently married to another woman. You never filed for divorce." The church exploded. People gasping. My bridesmaids grabbing my arms. My father jumping to his feet. I felt the room spinning. "That's impossible. Blake was divorced 2 years before we met." He showed me the papers. The Reverend held up a document. "These are the divorce papers he showed you. Forged. I had them verified by a legal expert after receiving a call from his actual wife." Blake's mother started crying. His father put his head in his hands. "Blake, tell me this isn't true," I said, my voice breaking. He finally looked at me. "Vanessa and I separated 6 years ago. I thought she'd file the papers. I didn't know she never did." Reverend Collins wasn't done. "You didn't know, or you knew and chose to lie?" He pulled out more papers. "Bank records show you've been sending your wife $2,000 every month for the past 3 years. Money that came from the joint account you share with your bride-to-be." I couldn't breathe. $2,000 a month. That was the money Blake said went to student loans. I'd been helping him pay off what I thought was debt while he was actually supporting another woman. "Where is she?" I asked. "Where is this wife?" Reverend Collins gestured toward the back of the church. "She's here." Every head turned. A woman stood up from the last pew. A woman I'd never seen before in my life. She was holding a toddler. "That's my husband," she said loudly. "We've been married for 8 years. We have a 2-year-old son together." The church erupted again. My sister was screaming. Blake's best man backed away from him. I looked at the child in her arms and then at Blake. "You have a son?" Blake finally broke. "Yes. Okay, yes. Vanessa and I never legally divorced because she's undocumented, and the marriage protects her immigration status. I couldn't just abandon her. She'd get deported." Reverend Collins held up another document. "According to these records, you filed a fraudulent marriage certificate with this bride-to-be 3 months ago in a destination ceremony in Mexico. That ceremony wasn't legally binding, but you told her it was. You've been telling her you're married for 3 months while simultaneously being married to another woman and hiding a child." I ripped off my veil. "You told me we got legally married in Mexico. You said we were just doing this ceremony for our families." Blake reached for me and I stepped back. "I was going to fix everything. I was going to tell you after the wedding. I just needed more time." My father was suddenly between us. "You were going to commit bigamy and let my daughter be an unwitting accomplice?" Blake's father stood up. "We told him to come clean. We begged him not to go through with this. We had no idea he'd go this far." Reverend Collins pulled out one final document. "There's more. Blake took out a life insurance policy on his bride-to-be 2 weeks ago, naming himself as the sole beneficiary. $500,000. The church went dead silent. My mother made a sound I'd never heard before. My brothers started moving toward Blake, and the groomsmen had to hold them back. "A life insurance policy?" My voice didn't sound real. "You were planning to kill me?" Blake was backing toward the side door. "No, that's not what that is. I needed it for financial planning." Reverend Collins stepped forward. "The policy company flagged it as suspicious and contacted authorities. There's a detective waiting outside to speak with you." Blake ran. He actually ran toward the side exit, but my cousins tackled him before he made it. The church descended into chaos. Police came in and arrested Blake right there on the altar. They put him in handcuffs while he screamed that it was all a misunderstanding. Vanessa, his actual wife, came forward crying and apologizing. She said she'd called the Reverend after finding my wedding invitation in Blake's apartment and realizing he was trying to marry someone else. She'd thought he'd actually divorced her years ago until she found documents proving otherwise. The police found evidence on Blake's laptop of him researching accidental death scenarios and hiking trails with dangerous cliffs where we'd planned our honeymoon. He was charged with attempted bigamy, fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and a dozen other crimes.